Welcome to She's Got Guts, where functional nutrition meets ancient wisdom to bring you grounded insights and practical tools for your wellness journey. Join Lara, licensed Eastern medicine practitioner and wellness wizard, and Molly, registered dietitian and gut health expert, as they unpack trends, tackle bloating, balance hormones, and help you thrive in modern womanhood without completely frickin' losing your mind. Let's do this. Today at She's Got Guts, we welcome Jason Stein, entrepreneur, business coach, acupuncturist, and one of the co-founders of Walawa Avenue Wellness. Welcome, Jason. We're so happy you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So I am dying to know, first and foremost, your story is so interesting. So what got you into this kind of work?
Well, I became a licensed acupuncturist in 1998, and I was on my way to get a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. And I literally took a left-hand turn in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just like Bugs Bunny. And I had acupuncture, and I found an acupuncture school, and they were recruiting, and I was like, ooh, that's fascinating. But I was still skeptical. And so I decided to go for a semester, and they put the white jacket on you, and there's a residency, and they say, sit in the corner, don't say anything or do anything, just observe. And I saw people healed again and again and again where Western medicine wasn't getting to the root of what they needed. And I got hooked. So I graduated. I got recruited to build an integrative medicine program in a hospital. And the school then said, you're so good at business, can you come back and teach our business program? And so for years, I spent teaching wellness providers business skills.
And he left right before I got there. So he didn't get to teach me. It was the same school. Darn it.
It's true. In 2007 to 2017, I was the chair of professional development for the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine. And I was treating very part-time and then doing a lot of business consulting and coaching. And my wife's a naturopath who I think has been on the show once.
Rachel's
and
been on here.
Coming up for a second time. And
yeah, we're excited.
We were inside Portland, and we have very small kids, and we were just like, we got to raise these kids in a rural community. And so we looked at all the rural communities in Oregon, and we came out to Joseph, Oregon, and we were like, this is it. And so it took us a couple of years. We moved out here, and then we built a wellness center from the ground up.
And it's beautiful.
Thank you.
And you're here to talk about the 5 elements of business. So I know you guys know more about this than I do. So tell us what the 5 elements are and how the heck they would apply to business.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And so as a acupuncturist, most acupuncturists learn either 5-element or traditional Chinese medicine or Japanese style. There's lots of different styles. And as I started coaching, I started working with people that are really making a difference in the world, but they have to be more and more profitable. And so I thought, what kind of assessment tool could I create coming from a background of Chinese medicine? So I created a 5-element leadership tool where there is wood, there's water, there's fire, there's metal, and there's water. Oh, did I say water twice? There's earth.
Oh, there you go. You got him.
Yeah, I did get them. It's like...
It's funny when you learn them in succession.
No notes.
Yeah, and then you kind of start in the middle. You're like, wait, I know metal, water, wood, fire, earth. If I start with fire, then I get confused. Yeah.
So really, some acupuncturists work with people seasonally. Like in Chinese medicine, you can work with people's diets according to the seasons. And I just thought it would be really good because most people have heard of the Enneagram or they've taken some sort of personality assessment tool.
Yeah.
And none of those really relate to me because the Chinese medicine system is a system of holistic systems. And so when I think about business, I think you can't separate out your life, especially now. Business is like 24/7 with your laptop and your cell phone. And so how can you figure out which element you lead with? And then how can you surround yourself with other people? And what I've found so far, because I don't want to mess Dr. Liz's name up, but Dr. Liz, I believe it's Carter, is out of Seattle, graduated from Bastyr, is a naturopath, is a 5-element specialist, which I am not. Like I didn't go to 5-element training school, but I understand.
Right,
And
same
so I
here.
taught myself enough to figure this out. And so we talked last week, Dr. Liz and I said, you're the expert. Did it resonate when you took the assessment tool? And I was so grateful that she said yes.
Good.
That's awesome.
So can I dial it in for the listeners a little bit? You said one thing that stood out for me was you said when you figure out what type of element you are, you're able to surround yourself by other people. What do you mean by that?
Sure, I can dive deeper. We all have parts of these elements within us. Usually our leadership style may be one of a visionary or a worker bee. Like there's certain elements that we have that we navigate to. And those evolve over time too. So it may be that it shifts with time. And if we're a visionary and like we get really big visions and we get really big ideas, but then we get strategic partners or business alliances that are also visionaries, sometimes that's not helpful because you're surrounding yourself with people with the exact same archetypal energy that you have. And what you need is sometimes somebody with really grounding earth energy, somebody that can take the vision and ground it down into the roots of the earth like a tree grows.
And the visionary was the watery person. Is that correct? I feel like it was water or metal. I feel like it was water.
Yeah, well, it depends on what aspect, because Chinese medicine is very interesting in the aspect of each element could be the same thing. So every element could have a visionary quality to it.
Right. It's how
What
they
you
approach
wanna-
the vision.
That's right. That's
Oh.
right.
Yeah. So how does a earth person approach the vision?
Yes.
They're like, I'm
I think
rooted right here. I'm not going anywhere. I have one vision.
Totally. I think an earth visionary is very practical. They're grounded. They may not take the right risks because they're very stable, and taking risks to them can be incredibly scary, whether that's financial risks or the risks of talking to people they don't know. Right. And so I think the main thing is and let's just take the 5-element out of it completely and talk to the listeners, right?
Right.
You have super strengths that other people don't have. And your job is to show up with those more fully, where I believe, especially with AI and YouTube, everybody's trying to get it all done by themselves, siloed. Now, the challenge in this is many people that listen to this podcast can get it all done. It doesn't mean they should. Because ultimately what happens is you become a Jill of all trade, master of none, and then you get overwhelmed. And then really sadly, because you're so good at so many different things, other people ask you for help all the time. And if you say yes because you can, it means you may not be focusing your vision on where you really could be, where you want to be, where the energy is most alive. Now,
That's so
again, with yin and yang, there's a giving and there's a receiving. And what I've found, because I've worked with, my guess is your listeners are more female than male. Is that accurate?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so with females specifically in the modern age, I just think sometimes women are smarter than men. And so they learn a different way. They learn to give. They're naturally caring. There's a lot of areas where they give, but they have trouble receiving. So when they give, they feel like then they owe more. So there's a constant like over giving, and that's where the burnout happens.
Interesting.
The burnout. I don't want to burn out. Nobody wants to burn out.
No, we
No,
don't.
but it's very common.
We
Yeah,
don't, Jason.
and it's every day. And it's not just in
Yeah.
business, it's in life, it's in relationships. That concept of giving and receiving can go anywhere.
Well, and when I do this exercise, so for the listeners, if you're just listening to this, in your right hand, I want you to think about the amount that you give to your family and to your friends and to your work and to your community and to anyone that asks. And then in your left hand, I want you to raise it to the level that you give to yourself and that you actually open up to receive. And is your right and your left hand balanced or not?
Oh man. Not really, and it also depends on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
globally, It's hard to. There's a lot of responsibilities.
Yes.
So how do you help people in what you do in taking these 5 elements and the wisdom that you have and guide them in a direction that's beneficial for them?
I think that I help them simplify because I think that all of us, especially in the modern age, have lots of ideas. Like I want to learn guitar and I want to hike more and I want to spend more time with my family and I have this business idea and that business idea. And I think it's really good when you work with someone that they can help kind of hone in, where do we start? What's the infrastructure? And so again, with yin and yang, you know, you can have all the ideas you want, but until you have the infrastructure of what's possible in time and space, you need to flush that out into some practical systems. And I think that what I do is I help people get from point A to point B really efficiently. And often it's not in the ways they think it would be, because many people think if I just get more done in the day and I'm more efficient in my day, then I'll get to where I want to go. And I don't believe that's true.
No,
I think
but
that,
it's a very worker bee. You know, we've been trained to think that way. We live in an industrial society. It's hard to break away from that visceral training to just go and do more because it will be fruitful.
It's easy to do, and it's also the easiest way to not get where you want to go, which is very odd. And so the key, kind of like Molly, you and Lara are doing this together. And I have a saying, together is better. And sometimes the easiest thing to do is to ask for help and to take risks in asking others for help. And often I've found that my clients have a whole community of people that are ready and willing to help, but my clients have never figured out how to make the ask, how to make it specific, how to make it timely, how to be clear on what's going to be most helpful. And those asks are priceless because all of a sudden your vision is no longer your vision. It's a shared vision.
What would be one or two quick things or longer things, whatever, tips that you would have for someone who does maybe have a hard time asking for help, regardless of their sign? And then I do kind of want to get a little bit into the signs after that. But I was wondering, like, if you were to advise someone on how to put themselves out there, what would you say?
Yeah, you got to start with micro steps. Oftentimes, a woman who makes a meal anytime someone in her community is injured and she'll go help people clear their clutter out of their garage is the same woman that would really almost impossible to ask someone could help her and make a meal for her. And so you got to start small. And I would I think asks could be labeled on a scale of 1 to 10. And I would start with like some 1, 2s, or 3s rather than 8, 9s, and 10s. And then what happens is it's like going to the gym and you get to build that muscle where it really is okay to ask people, and it doesn't have to be a one-to-one relationship. So the second tip would be, if someone's helping you, it doesn't mean that you always have to help them more in return. It means that you're now in the law of circulation, and them helping you allows you to be more resourced to help others.
Oh, Jason, why do you have to say that? Just slaps me right in the face, that one. Why do you have to, like, it's like I'm a one-upper naturally. I'm like, wait, no, yes, I do. I have to do more. If you brought me soup, I'm going to bring you soup and bread. Dang it.
Not only have I seen this happen, but imagine internally the subconscious dialogue that says, I really want help, but if I actually ask for help, then I have to give more.
Right. So it stops you from it. That's a very negative.
Well, you do have to give more.
But you don't. You don't. Right. And this is where the yin and the yang come in, that all men and women and non-binary people have masculine and feminine energy. And this is a much more masculine trait, to be able to just be comfortable. Like, how many men do you know that have trouble asking? Right?
I know one.
They over-ask. Yeah. They over-ask. Like, hey, can you do this? And can you do that? And I know you're busy, but can you do that other thing? And so women have this opportunity, because I think the biggest fear is the guilt and the shame of, like, I'm going to be a burden. I'm going to have to give more. If I actually receive the help then there's like tension in the relationship, and all of these things are, you know, like from early childhood and other people influencing us in the way of what we were taught about asking for help when we were a child.
So
I have an
interesting because I
idea
see.
of the
Oh,
difference.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry. No, I was just
Oh,
going to say the difference for me between like a 1-2 ask and like a 8-10 ask. Do you have a tangible example for maybe like a listener?
Absolutely.
I think globally we kind of get it,
Sure.
but could you
Yeah.
quantify it a little bit for
Yeah. So a
clarify?
1-2 task would be, you know, I'm really, you know, struggling getting my house in order or my home office. Could you come and give me a hand for an hour? Or could you, I just need someone else in my space. Could you come talk to me while I do it? Like, it can be a very simple ask, but then they say yes. And then this is where we drop the ball. We don't say, does Saturday 10 a.m. work for you? So they say yes, and then we both get busy. And then I'm like, I definitely don't want to ask again. So they said yes, I don't want to bother them. So I think getting really proficient at asking is a super good quality. Now, a 9 or a 10 is all of us probably know someone very financially resourced. And, making an ask of like, you know, could I have $10,000 to start this project that I've been wanting to do? Like, would you be
Right.
interested in giving me some seed money for that? Now, I think the challenge is there's no gradient for some women, so everything's a 10. It's like just asking to come over for helping for an hour is a 10.
Yeah,
And
it feels
that's
that
where
way. It feels like a 10,
exactly.
even though it's a 1.
But
yeah.
but physiologically, when it feels like a 10, our body begins to work against us. So we just have to breathe and say, can't believe everything we think.
Oh, again, stop it.
Ouch. Yeah.
Spitting the wise wisdom over there from Bounds of
Really.
Joseph with your hat on. I love it.
Really. I see that a lot, I think, on a different plane with women who are changing the way that they're eating, but they also are the ones that cook for their families. So let's say they're doing more plant proteins and they're adding more vegetables to things, and then they're feeling guilty because their husband or children by proxy may not, or their partner may not want those things. And so I think it's so interesting because, you know, it's like, okay, well, here I am putting out all this effort to grocery shop and plan the meal and then make the meal, and yet I feel bad about it. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that around too, like, oh, well, you're also it's on some level asking, can you meet me where I am in wherever
Exactly.
we are on this journey together, right?
Like
And
there's
I
a
think
level
that's a
of
huge,
discomfort.
huge pitfall when someone in the household goes on a special diet,
hard.
especially if it's the woman making all the meals, right? And then making 2 to 3 meals. I've seen it happen. I've actually seen a woman make 4 different meals in a household. And I think that's where you're giving, and then you go bankrupt. And so you have to say, I'm really struggling. Would everyone be willing to get on board for 4 weeks or 21 days with me? And we'll reevaluate if we all hated it or we all loved it, or some of us loved it and some of us hated it. And most people, when they ask that way, people want to be more supportive, even kids, men that are stuck in their ways. Lots of people in that connection want to get on board.
You know, we talk a
Right.
lot about small changes that become cumulative, that are actually can take hold in the future. And a lot of the time, parallel to making those small changes, like you said, the people around you, whether it's these people that you're finding that are perfect in 5 element for your business or maybe your family or whatever, because you've held the space of discomfort for so long, that there's going to be this parallel of you actually having to hold space for those people that are going to be experiencing discomfort while you're making a change for you that you know at the end of the road is going to be successful and it's going to come back to them, but they can't also sometimes see it because of the discomfort. Does that make sense? Like there's
It does.
there's a
the
yin and
way-
the yang within it too. And that's,
Yeah.
I find that's where I struggle a little bit is like, okay, I know I'm going to be making these changes and asking for this help, but it also means that I'm going to be providing a little bit of space for them to be uncomfortable while I need the help, if that makes sense. Emil is
And
a
I
great
think
example.
that's the rub. That's the rub, is like, I think that women and men are quite different in this realm, where if a family member is uncomfortable, the man's usually like, wow, look at him be uncomfortable over there. And the woman's like, how can I make sure there's more ease and less discomfort, right? But when we look at learning zones, really, the first concentric circle is the comfort zone. And that's where we just do what we've always done. And so even for a woman that never asks for help, and she isn't going to ask for help, that's still comfortable in there because she knows what that looks like. There's no surprises. You know, it doesn't take like any difference. And then we move one layer out, and that's the learning zone, where she begins to ask for help, and it's uncomfortable. Not only uncomfortable for her, but when she starts to ask for help, everyone in her community, like maybe her coworkers have been taking advantage of her and they don't even realize it. And now she's setting boundaries. And that learning zone is, they're uncomfortable, she's uncomfortable, so it feels wrong, but you got to stay in the learning zone. Now you go one more out, and that's the panic zone. And that's where fight or freeze happens, fight, freeze, or flight happens. And one of the things that I work with people are, what are the symptoms, right? So I have a client right now, very high-end client, works with multi-million-dollar contracts, and he's working on his anger triggers. So when we get angry, normally there are symptoms that occur first. Maybe it's pressure on the shoulders, maybe it's a headache coming on. These things can elude that we're not on path, that we can redirect.
Right. Even maybe another emotion, like it's always fear that precedes the anger. It's always vulnerability that precedes the anger, or some sort of, pattern of emotions that lead to this. Well, this is the one that I know that's the most familiar, that I always stop at and get mad, and it releases all of this tension or whatever.
Right. And you said fear and anger, and then we come back to the Chinese medicine, and fear is the kidney and anger is the liver, right?
Yeah.
So it's all interrelated from a holistic system.
Yeah. And just bringing it back to our listeners, the liver and the kidney, I mean, that's a perimenopausal organ symphony you love to have aligned.
Yeah.
Because those guys are going to be doing a lot of work for us when we're navigating hormones. It's intense.
Yeah.
So, Jason, when you think about having these asks and where you might land in like your business and how you do, one of the things we talk about a lot in here is what message, not necessarily what is your gut telling you, but like what kind of messages are you giving your gut? Like, how are you kind of telling your body, like, how are you branding the way that you show up in the world with how you're kind of like approaching things when they show up? I guess I'm not asking that very well, but I'm wondering how this 5 element can bring in a little more like
intuition.
Just bring it back to the gut a little bit. Like, how do we let our intuition ride in this game?
Awesome. So I'm going to put 5 element on the side, and I'm going to bring it back to yin and yang.
Great.
And I truly believe we have a flux of yin and yang that is our style. It's our flavor. We have a masculine, we have a feminine. Now, the challenge is that when we have a business and we brand our business, we often do it from what we think people want or need rather than from true authenticity or true guts. Yeah. And so when you take a look at your yin and yang and your brand, it may be that you want to be more Oprah, but you're not. Like, that's not who you are.
Right.
And so you have to start to find your language, the phrases you use at home, what's your lingo, what's important to you, what are your core values, and then really what's the intention. So for me personally, if I had a yin and yang, I'm a real mixture of Eminem and Dalai Lama. Like I'll meditate,
yeah,
but
I'm
also like, don't fuck with me. Right?
That's so funny.
Yes.
And so once you know your flavor, everything can become easier from there. Because then you're just being authentically yourself and you're not trying to chat GPT it to something else.
Totally.
In the 5 elements, I have a tremendous amount of wood. Yeah. And so I have big insights. I'm not very detail oriented. Like I can create $5 million visions per day, right? And so gratefully, Rachel and I are business partners and we counterbalance each other. Like what's really easy for her is really difficult for me. And what's really easy for me is really difficult for her. Like I'm on social media and I can post every day and it takes me like 3 minutes. He hates social media and is on it maybe once every 2 months.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And so that's a really good synergy.
totally. What about you, Laura? Do you know yours?
Jason has been my coach for quite some time. And so we did this, I don't know, 2 months ago, I want to say. And what I found pretty fascinating is that I feel like we had done something similar to this before. Well, I don't want to say similar to it, but when we had kind of looked at how I move through the world when we first started working together and how I envision how I move through the world in business. And then looking at how I took this test, I was like, holy Hannah, that used to be me, but I have to be honest with myself that this is actually me now. And before I would have been very watery. I was like, oh, we can go here. We can do this. It'll be amazing. Let's just start it. I don't even care. Let's do it right now. Everything is going to be so fun. It'll crush. Let's do it. And now I'm like, whoa, we've got to have a system in place. I do not have enough, excuse my language, but I don't have enough fucks to go start something and then come back and restart it again. I also don't have the financial or energetic currency to be starting things over and over and over again. Like I got to stop, take a breath and reevaluate, get systems in place and see what's actually going to work for the long-term vision. And if I remember correctly, those were more of the tendencies of a person of a metal. I remember thinking, wow, that doesn't feel like me. Like my personality is very fiery. I tend to move through the world very watery, but in business, I am showing up in a very metal container right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was fascinated because when you took it and you're like, I don't know if this is me. And I said, well, not who you've been, who you are right now. And you were like, yeah.
Yeah. And it was a great reflection tool. It really was. Because
awesome.
it is nice to have a mirror, right? These questions do provide a mirror, but there's so much depth within the way that it happens, quite like most personality tests. But I really think the yin and yang, it's just so, it's rooted in so much Taoism and it's very holistic and it involves all systems and it's spirit, it's mind, it's body, it's function, it's system, it's everything. And so it's just a great reflection that's very encompassing. So it mirrors you in a way where you're like, oh crap, I can't really talk my way out of that one.
Oh, cool.
You said you like looked online for something, Molly. Did you find one that you found? What did you find?
I took some like random thing, so I don't know like how accurate it was, but it did seem like, given my propensity to not be detail oriented, and to be a little more direct with people, and also just kind of have a lot in my head and then be more, I guess, within myself. I was getting some wood and I was also getting some water. So I think, it depends how you're taking the test and what you're really doing. But I can see both of those things, and I can see how you would need to have some more direction before you, I guess, just kind of jumped into something like that. But I wanted to have some idea of what was going on.
Yeah.
So do you have
I appreciate you taking something, and as a thank you for bringing me on, I'm going to share mine with you after the call. And so you can go ahead and take it. And what it'll do is it'll give you the strengths of your areas, the challenges, famous people that share similar strengths, and then tips for you on what you could do.
Oh, cool. Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So as we kind of come back here to give some actionable tips to people, how do you use these elements, and how do you also kind of bring forward this work within you?
For me personally, I'm a little scattered. Like I probably have ADD or ADHD, and I don't take medication. And so I have to meditate every morning as an anchor or a grounding point. And if I skip 1 or 2 mornings, by the 3rd morning, I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with me? And then I realize you haven't meditated for a day to 2 days. And so as soon as I anchor back in, everything gets easier. That's one thing I do. Second thing I do is I leverage my skills with my partner's skills. So I have a business partner who's also my wife. and life partner, business partner. And so she handles the detail orientation. And then if I have a big vision, we work it out together. And if she has a big vision, we work it out together. But I make sure that I have someone who has my back on details, because I'll end up going too fast and then I'll exhaust a lot of energy and not really get anywhere. I'll go in circles. So those are a couple areas for me personally. The tip that I could have for people, you know, whether it's 5-element leadership tool or assessments, if you're going to work with a coach, work with someone that's giving you enough reflection that it's not just like, how are you? How was the last 2 weeks? It's like you need more. And what you really need is you need someone to get you from your highest self, and you need structures and systems. And so it's very odd that I don't know if it's a blind spot, but helping myself create systems is very difficult, but helping others is very easy.
Oh, isn't that the most annoying thing ever? You're like, why can't I turn the mirror around? And it's just so easy. You're like, why is this so challenging?
I think I've just figured out that I'm a really good coach that helps a lot of people. And there's times I need coaching. I mean, really, that's a good lens. Like, you might be the best healer in the world, but there's a saying, he who heals himself has a fool for a physician. Right? So I should probably change that she who heals herself has a fool for a physician.
Okay, whatever.
Right? Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
All are welcome.
All are welcome.
So what I would say in people are going to start using ChatGPT for their therapist. It's already happening. It's going to continue to happen. And I would say a little bit of that goes a long way. And what you're needing as a listener is some professional support that works for you.
Oh,
now,
for sure.
I may or I may not be the right fit for you, which is great, but find someone to get in your corner. Because if you get the right person in your corner, the things you've been thinking about for years can happen in the next 3 to 6 months. That's really true. And my guess is for most of the listeners, they've had an idea that they've been thinking about for years. And they've just never figured out how to systemize the action to make it into fruition.
And I could attest to that. I mean, in the last 2 or 3 years working with Jason, I think it's been close to that. I have quit my practice and closed the doors. He was with me when we were trying to sell it and had unfortunate, really weird buyers and had to walk away from them. Now I've got a bunkie in my backyard that I just spread 2 yards of gravel for. It is. And I'm realizing that, when I first started to become an acupuncturist, just a little side here, but this is really great because it touches on what you were saying, and that a reflective coach truly is someone that is like, if you don't feel that, then you need to go in the other direction. Because one of the things that I realized, having gone through this journey that I've been on recently, at least with my acupuncture practice and creating a container that feels good for me, is that when I started this, I was working in a fishing factory, fresh and frozen pack of salmon in Valdez, Alaska. And at the end of my first year, everyone was like aware that I was really into like supplements and herbs and healing and things. And they're like, you need to go see this guy Skip in Hope, Alaska. And I'm like, okay. And I was very, excited about him, whatever. It motivated me for acupuncture. Here I am. And I'm realizing that I'm creating now what I saw at the very beginning. Like, I'm creating a little space that is going to be this beautiful woo-woo wellness bunkie that I'm hoping that will kind of infiltrate North Portland as being like, I'm kind of the person you come to when you want to feel better in town. And that's who he was. And I was influenced by, my upbringing as being very independent and wanting to achieve so many things on my own, and then getting stuck in the insurance cog. But here we are right back to the center, which I just find really, it's very heartfelt, and I'm so grateful for it. So thank you, Jason. If you didn't know you did that.
Well, it's super. What I love about the vision is it's super simple, and you really got caught up in complexity, especially with insurance and associates and employees, and life can get so complex. And I have a wellness center with my wife, and we have 0 employees. We have contractors. And so it just is a way to make things simple, and we live above it. So we own the building and we live upstairs. And I as we move into more and more chaotic times,
Yeah.
The more you can simplify your life, the easier it will get. And Molly, you said the word plug earlier. What I want to plug is we have a digital detox retreat in the middle of Wallowa County. We have an RPod that abuts 11,000 acres of land. And you can go out there and just get off grid, and your cell phone won't work because it doesn't have cell access. And we can come out and we can either focus on health or we can focus on goal setting, and we can get you reset. And so just
I can attest to that too. I've done a retreat with them that was a slightly different container, but I did all the things, and that was actually part of this giant reboot, and it's wonderful.
Love it.
And so we beta tested entrepreneur retreats, and we had a tiny house, but we were in the middle of town. And we realized people don't need to be in the middle of town, although the population's 1,200.
It doesn't feel like you're in the middle of town, even though you kind of are.
People need to be in the middle of the woods, and that's where the healing's going to happen. And so if people want more information, you can track us down and we'll get you information on that.
Okay, we'll put all of your information in the show notes. We appreciate very much you coming by today. This has been so nice and so transformative. And I know that a lot of people listening will feel like it's been a good permission slip as well. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the women in my world. And I just love to hear stories when you guys receive, when you finally make those asks and that you're supported. And so thanks for having me today.
Thanks for being
Bye.
here. I'm tipping my hat to you.
Thank you so much for listening. We offer personalized support to clients in many ways and would love to work with you. Reach out to Lara at Lala's Wellness and Molly at Women's Gut Health for more information. Unlock your full health and hormone potential with Super Q, Boom Bomb, and Best Tea. Check out the link in the show notes for more. See you next Saturday.